Hey, welcome back to Unschool Theology. I'm one of your hosts, Derick, and of course, as always, over there to my right or left, depending on if you're watching this on video or if you're on audio, just picture it in your mind, is Evan. Good day to you, sir.
Good day to you, sir. I thought you were going to say I was on left on video and right on audio, which I didn't. I
Yeah,
didn't think
well,
that was going to be possible.
a previous episode, I pointed at you because on my screen, this was the right direction to point.
And did you
And
set me up in the other?
yeah, no, I guess it mirrors it backward the other way then when you're editing it
Oh,
somehow.
okay.
So I should have been pointing this
Just
way.
point the
So in
opposite.
theory, right now, I should be pointing at you when I go to edit this video.
Okay.
So right now, I'm pointing at nothing from
Yeah.
my
You're pointing
perspective.
at nothing from my perspective, too.
Weird. Okay. Well, I'll look forward to
I
actually when I
guess it
get to
flips
edit
it.
this and see
Yeah.
what happened right
It'll be a
there.
good moment.
One day I'll figure out how this
Yeah.
actually works in the translation from recording to editing.
Right.
I mean, I could flip it in editing, but I'm not going to do it. That's too much
That's a
work
hassle.
for a small joke of pointing.
Yeah.
Unnecessary. But
Yeah.
all right, so we're continuing along in Genesis 3 here as we're looking at Genesis 3 verses 20 to 21, two verses this time. So I'm going to read that now. The man called his wife's name Eve because she was the mother of all living. And the Lord God made for Adam and for his wife garments of skin and clothed them. All right, so we once again get the idea of naming, right? This is something we've seen several times before. In fact, we'll remember that the man, as he was then, not yet Adam, named the woman before. So, again, if we take this historically, he's naming the same person twice, which is weird. But here we get the idea, though, that it's Adam naming Eve. And what this does is a part of it does actually kind of reinforce the what God said to Eve, where he said that your desire shall be to the man and he shall rule over you. The naming here does actually kind of signify that coming to fruition, if you will, right? It sort of maybe reinforces that idea a little bit. Reinforcing then the idea that the feminine should be subservient to the masculine in a sense, right? And we talked about why that may be in some previous episodes. So that's just the first thing I want to get to with the naming. Now, the idea of the mother of all living here, right? This is something that people would say, well, there we go. That's a historical claim, right? Therefore, this is a historic, or the story needs to be taken as history. Now, I just want to say I don't think that necessarily is the case, right? Again, if the importance of this story is this kind of symbolic significance, then this would just be a way of saying that this is symbolically the mother of us all, meaning that the feminine aspect and the particular weakness to temptation that comes with the feminine aspect, that exists within us all. That is what the mother of all living here would be getting at. It would be saying that there is something of Eve, something of the feminine in all of us.
Mm-hmm. Represented most by the phrase mother. So she's representative of all. She's
Yes.
Representative of all mother, of like the concept of
no
mother.
No, she is the mother of us all, meaning we all descend from her, but we descend symbolically, right, from her. It doesn't have to be historically. We symbolically all are descendants of her, meaning we all contain something of her, of the woman in this story within us. Specifically, a feminine aspect is within all of us, and thus the feminine temptation to sin.
Okay.
So
makes sense.
And then lastly, for this section, and this is kind of quick, but the next verse requires a little more elaboration, so I don't want to squeeze that all into this episode. So lastly, though, I want to get to garments of skin, right? This is interesting because we know before they had covered with fig leaves, right? And here God's replacing with a garment of skin that he provides. Now, if we want to look forward, we can see a lot in there symbolically, in that Israel is represented by a fig, right? For quite some time. And the fig of Israel, the fig leaves of Israel, was sort of covered the sin of the world for a period of time until God gave us Christ, himself in human form, and that the skin then, right, something more human, I guess, animal is what is used in this story, an animal skin. But that, of course, we know obviously with the sacrifice of lambs and those kind of things leads up to the point of being Christ. So it symbolizes that sort of better covering, right? Because obviously garments made of skin are a better covering than of some fig leaves strung together. So this is the idea of a covering, a better covering, right? And God giving a better covering to the sin. And so it foreshadows Christ. It also, for now, sort of demonstrates the idea that only God can really cover their sin, right? Cover their shame, cover their nakedness, right? Because they attempted to do it themselves. And before God sends them out of the garden, because it's not even really said here that they're yet out of the garden, before God really sends them out, he covers them with something provided by himself. And I think the way that we should understand that in terms of the order of things occurring in this story is that, yeah, you're never going to be able to cover your nakedness, right? You're never going to be able to cover the consequences of your sin and the reality of your sin. And therefore, God is the only one who can provide that covering.
What I think is interesting, both with the fig leaves and the animal skins, is we kind of talked about orders of things, and humanity being in this section. Humanity grabbed for a particular order of things, the plants, in order to attempt to cover them. Yeah, and then what was required was grabbing the coverings that animals use in order to cover themselves, the skin of animals, which is a little bit higher order, which is what God then provides, which is very interesting.
Well, what's interesting too, though, is that it's still a covering from below, right?
Correct.
Because the animals are below humans, and that continues, that symbolic grabbing something from below, right, to cover the sin. And that's only temporary at best, which is why the animal sacrifices must be repeated, right? Again, we talked actually just last episode when we were talking about marriage, the idea of rituals being meant to sort of remind us of things. Well, the reason you had to continually sacrifice animals, right, if you were part of the nation of Israel, the reason you'd have to do this continuously was to remind you that this is not an adequate covering. This doesn't solve the problem. This temporarily covers you, right? And so because it is something from below, and then eventually something from above, Christ is given us, which it becomes a permanent covering. It actually does now cover the nakedness for good.
What's interesting too is it has violence involved. Whereas just ripping fig leaves off a tree doesn't kill the tree. The tree's still alive. And what this fundamentally is both the animal sacrifices and then the requiring of the skin to cover yourself. That required violence in order to cover up the shame. There's like this it deepens the depth, it deepens the significance of what has happened, that man and woman reached for the least violent means of covering up.
Well, it's almost they realized they had broken creation and then tried to figure out how to cover it up without what is the least possible damage I can do, right?
Yeah, correct. And then God comes in and says, no, this is what's required.
Yeah, it's like
you're going to have to kill things in order to cover up now.
Yeah.
That feels like,
you can't minimize the damage you did.
Yeah.
Right. The damage you did is what it is. And that's why there's has to be a sacrifice of life here, right? To sort of signify to us the gravity of the consequences of sin.
Yeah. Yeah. And all that's unspoken. That's what's very interesting. It's comparable to someone who's immature screwing up something, and then the more experienced person coming in and like just showing what it's going to now require to fix it. That's it's like if you're a construction worker and you screw something up minor and you don't realize how bad you've really screwed something up, and somebody who's more experienced says, yeah, this is going to be really hard.
Not even says, right? It's more like just
does it.
Sit here and watch this, right?
Yeah.
Like and just makes you sit there and watch what it actually took to fix whatever you broke.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's what it feels like. That's that's profoundly significant, that shift that goes on.
Yes.
I don't know, that's also that's both significant to the story of the Bible, but as how you would look at that in your own life too. I think it's significant to not underestimate what it takes to fix mistakes sometimes. Yes. Because it's very easy to think, okay, we're just going to grab fig leaves and we're going to cover this up and it'll be fine. But it's like, a lot of times the thing is more deeply, it's more deeply corrupted things than you realize.
Yes. Yeah. And the path to correction is more costly than you realize. That's I think the term here that we probably should highlight around this, is that the fig leaves, there was something that was a low cost solution. And it's like God coming in and saying, no, the cost to fix this is going to be much greater. And we'll start from below, but in that it comes from below, you're going to have to keep doing it in order to pay the cost. But to pay the cost permanently, it has to be something that comes from above.
Exactly.
Christ. So all right. Well, hey, with that, we're going to wrap this up. Be sure to like, subscribe, follow, review, all of those kind of things. Rate, 5 stars or give us less if you must, on whatever platform you're on.
5 stars. Do 5 stars.
Give us 5 stars. And give us an email, unschooltheology@protonmail.com. Be sure to sign up for our mailing list. We'll let you know when we got stuff coming out. Articles should be, if I'm not writing them by this point, I should be soon, coming out on unschooltheology.com regularly, assuming I still have that URL. So look forward to all that, and we'll catch you again in the next one. Thanks.